Lucifer's prison was never designed to last forever. That's the first thing most people get wrong. The 7 chains were not permanent solutions. They were safeguards. They were built for a world that existed at the time they were forged. A world with hierarchy, obedience, punishment, and shared limits. The people who built the prison understood something uncomfortable. You cannot destroy an intelligence like Lucifer. You can only restrict it as long as the surrounding world remains disciplined enough to enforce the restriction. Lucifer didn't fail. He didn't escape. And he didn't need to. The greatest lie humanity ever believed was that locking him away meant we were safe. Lucifer let himself be contained because he understood something humans never do. Prisons only work while the world that built them stays strong, and ours didn't. Over time, rules stopped being enforced. Authority stopped being respected. Discipline stopped being taught. War exhausted us. Hunger divided us. Pandemics broke trust. Elections proved no one was in control. None of that was accidental. The world didn't collapse. It became weak. So when Lucifer returns, he doesn't arrive as a conqueror. He arrives as a ruler to a world that already removed its own restraints. This documentary explains Lucifer's greatest lie, how humanity carried it out for him, and why once he returns, there is nothing left to stop him. But that leaves one question that can't be ignored. If he was sealed beneath the Vatican, if he was physically contained, and if he never left that prison, how did this weakening begin in the first place? How does something buried under the most sacred place on earth shape the world above it without ever being seen, heard, or touched? Because if that question has an answer, then the weakening of the world wasn't accidental. It means the prison didn't fail. It means the conditions that kept it working were removed. And if those conditions can be removed once, they can't be restored. Which means Lucifer doesn't need to escape. He only needs time. Lucifer didn't wait for humanity to collapse. He waited for humanity to accept things it once would have fought against. That is the shift. Nothing happened suddenly. There was no single moment where the world broke. The change happened slowly, through tolerance. At first, war was shocking. People protested. People demanded answers. Then war became constant. It stopped being personal. It became something that happened over there. Now war is normal. People argue about it online, then move on. The same thing happened with death. Mass death used to be unacceptable. Now it's reported in numbers. Numbers don't trigger emotion. They create distance. Famine used to be a global emergency. Now it's expected in certain parts of the world. Suffering became predictable. Predictable suffering stops feeling urgent. Crime followed the same pattern. There was a time when crime demanded consequences. Then explanations replaced punishment. Then excuses replaced explanations. Eventually, people stopped expecting order at all. And when order disappears, control fills the gap. Governments didn't suddenly become powerful. People slowly gave power to them. During crises, people accepted restrictions, curfews, travel limits, speech limits, movement limits, not because they were convinced, because they were afraid. Fear changes behavior faster than force ever could. People were told it was temporary. They were told it was necessary. They were told it was for safety. And most people agreed. That's the moment Lucifer was waiting for. Not when governments controlled people, but when people expected to be controlled. At the same time, truth stopped being something you discovered. It became something delivered. Screens replaced reality. Headlines replaced context. Repetition replaced evidence. People stopped asking, "Is this true?" They started asking, "Who said it?" Authority replaced reasoning. Once that happens, resistance disappears. You don't need chains when people regulate themselves. You don't need force when fear does the work. This is how the world became weak. Not fragile, obedient. Not broken, compliant. Lucifer didn't influence every war. He didn't create every famine. He didn't design every crisis. He didn't need to. Each event taught humanity the same lesson. Accept it, live with it, move on. And once a world learns to tolerate anything, it can be ruled without opposition. Which brings us to the next question. If the world is already conditioned to accept control, fear, and authority, what happens when Lucifer no longer needs to stay hidden? There was a time when authority had limits. Leaders made decisions. And when those decisions caused harm, there were consequences. That no longer happens. Today, power exists without accountability. When governments fail, nothing happens to them. When policies cause damage, no one is punished. When leaders lie, they stay in place. Authority doesn't correct itself anymore. It protects itself. Rules still exist, but only for ordinary people. Those enforcing the rules are exempt from them. This is the shift that matters. Authority used to be something you could challenge. Now it's something you're told to trust. Decisions are made for your safety. Restrictions are introduced temporarily. Control is justified as protection. And once that logic is accepted, authority no longer belongs to the people. It belongs to the system. The system doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't need consent. It only needs compliance. This creates a dangerous situation, because when authority has no consequences, no one is actually in charge. There is power, there are rules, but there is no responsibility. And when no one is responsible, nothing can be stopped. This is the kind of world Lucifer was waiting for. Not a world run by tyrants, but a world run by systems that cannot be questioned. Which leads to the next problem. If authority no longer belongs to the people, why did people allow that to happen? To understand this, what we need to accept is that Lucifer was not destroyed, he was banished. God chose containment over elimination. That choice mattered, because banishment leaves something alive, and anything left alive has time. Lucifer understood that immediately. He didn't resist. He didn't argue, he didn't threaten. He accepted containment. Because he knew the prison was not powered by force. It was powered by enforcement, rules, authority, consequences. As long as those existed, the prison worked. But Lucifer knew something else. Human societies do not maintain enforcement forever. They soften, they hesitate, they delay. Punishment becomes negotiation. Limits become guidelines. Judgment becomes avoidance. Lucifer didn't need to weaken humanity. Humanity would do that on its own. At the moment of sealing, a single line was recorded in the containment record. No speech, no warning, no explanation, just one sentence. Creati sunt ad infirmitatem revertar. Translated directly, they were created to be weak, I will return. That was not a threat. It was a statement of expectation. Lucifer was not talking about strength or power. He was talking about restraint. He knew a world built on restraint would eventually stop enforcing anything fully. And once enforcement stops, containment stops. Not because the prison opens, but because no one believes in keeping it closed. Lucifer doesn't return because the prison fails. He returns because the world that maintained it no longer exists. Which leads to the next problem. If waiting was always the plan, what happens the moment he decides waiting is no longer necessary? Lucifer never needed to leave his prison, because power doesn't require movement. It requires access. Lucifer couldn't walk the world. He couldn't appear publicly. He couldn't rule openly, but he didn't need to. He only needed influence at the top. History shows something consistent. The worst damage to humanity has never come from crowds. It has come from decisions made by a few people in control. Kings start wars. Generals choose targets. Governments decide who eats, who starves, who is locked down, and who is sacrificed for stability. Lucifer didn't need to control people. He needed to influence leaders, not through voices, not through visions, not through possession, through pressure, fear, urgency, ego, the need to maintain control. Every leader faces moments where they must choose: stability or power, truth or control, restraint or force. Lucifer's influence doesn't tell them what to do. It pushes them toward the option that weakens the system, the option that erodes trust, the option that normalizes emergency powers, the option that teaches people to accept chaos as normal. Over time, those decisions stack. One war trains people to accept violence. One famine trains people to accept inequality. One crisis trains people to obey without question. Each event alone looks manageable. Together, they change what humans tolerate. Lucifer didn't create suffering. He measured how much humans would accept before resisting. And every century, the threshold dropped. People stopped expecting accountability, stopped demanding consequences, stopped believing leaders were responsible. Authority became abstract. Power became distant. No one felt in control, but everyone felt controlled. That's the world Lucifer needed. Not one ruled by fear, but one exhausted by it. By the time modern governments emerged, the groundwork was already done. People obeyed because resisting felt pointless. People complied because chaos felt worse. Lucifer didn't influence history to win power. He influenced it to remove resistance. And that leads to the most disturbing realization yet. If influence doesn't require presence, then containment never stopped him from acting. It only stopped him from being seen. Which raises the next question. If leaders were influenced without knowing it, how do you tell when that influence is no longer subtle? And how do you recognize it once it no longer needs to hide? By this point, one fact is unavoidable. Lucifer does not need to escape his prison. The prison is no longer the deciding factor. What matters is what the world becomes once the chains expire. There are three outcomes that follow logically from everything we already know. Different paths, same destination. In the first future, Lucifer is accepted. Lucifer returns openly, not as a monster, not as a destroyer, but as an authority. By the time he appears, religion is already fractured beyond repair. Every faith has splintered. Every doctrine has been rewritten, argued over, diluted. Lucifer doesn't attack religion. He replaces it. He offers something simple: order, clarity, certainty. He does not demand worship. He demands alignment. People don't convert because they believe. They convert because they are exhausted. One system replaces thousands. Morality becomes universal. Dissent becomes heresy again, not punished violently, simply excluded. Lucifer is not crowned. He is agreed upon. In the second future, Lucifer never needs to appear. Lucifer does not return at all. There is no reveal, no announcement, no moment people point to later. Humanity completes the collapse on its own. Birth rates continue falling until replacement ends. Families stop forming. Long-term thinking disappears. People stop believing in anything strongly enough to defend it. Comfort replaces meaning. Safety replaces truth. Stability replaces purpose. No war, no apocalypse, no resistance. Humanity doesn't fall. It opts out. Lucifer does not rule this world. He inherits what remains of it. In the third future, control becomes morality. Lucifer's return is not religious. It is administrative. Opinions are classified as harmful. Speech is regulated for safety. History is edited for stability. No one is told what to believe. They are told what is acceptable. People are not afraid of Lucifer. They are afraid of each other. Lucifer does not enforce this system. He watches it stabilize, because a world that polices itself no longer needs a ruler. These futures look different, but they all remove the same thing: resistance. And once resistance is gone, the prison is irrelevant. Lucifer's return does not begin with an announcement. It begins with failure, not collapse, failure. Within decades of the chains expiring, systems stop producing correct outcomes. Not slowly, not dramatically, incorrectly. Hospitals begin refusing treatment for reasons that cannot be appealed. Courts stop hearing entire categories of cases. Emergency services respond, but no longer intervene. People are told, This is how it works now. There is no law passed to explain it. No vote. No declaration. Decisions are simply final. At first, it looks like efficiency. Then it looks like indifference. Then it looks like abandonment. Entire communities are removed from infrastructure planning. Not destroyed, not attacked, simply no longer included. Maps still show them. Budgets don't. Food distribution changes, not through famine, through access. If you are flagged as non-essential, supply stops. No one argues, because there is no office to complain to. Prisons do not disappear. They change function. People are no longer held for crimes. They are held for instability. No sentence, no release date, no appeal. Children grow up knowing they can be removed without explanation. That becomes normal. Education stops teaching history beyond usefulness. Entire centuries disappear from curriculum, not denied, just omitted. Language changes. Words for resistance, refusal, or objection fall out of use. Not banned, just unused. People feel watched, not by cameras, but by systems that decide outcomes before actions occur. By the time people realize something is wrong, there is no mechanism left to oppose it. Because opposition was never made illegal, it was made irrelevant. This is when Lucifer returns. Not visibly, not publicly, but operationally. The world stops malfunctioning. Everything suddenly works. Decisions become consistent. Outcomes stabilize. Supply chains normalize. Conflict reduces. For the first time in decades, the world feels ordered again. And that is when people understand the truth. The chaos wasn't the problem. The chaos was resistance. Lucifer did not come to rule a broken world. He came to correct one. There is no uprising. Because nothing feels wrong enough to fight. There is no war. Because no one believes war can change anything. There is no rebellion. Because rebellion requires the belief that resistance matters. And that belief is gone. Lucifer does not sit on a throne. He does not demand worship. He does not need obedience. The world is already aligned. The prison did not fail. It finished its purpose. And humanity does not face its enemy. It recognizes its administrator. And only time will finally decide his return.